So when did you know that there was going to be a sequel? Did you always have one in the back of your mind as you were working on Touch of Gold? Was it after the fact?
No, so I'm a pantser. When I write, that means I fly by the seat of my pants. I don't plot my books. So I literally got to the end of the book. I wrote the last scene, and I was like, huh, okay, this actually needs a sequel. So that was when I knew. Now I try to plan a little bit better. I at least try to know going in that, like, this will have a sequel, this will not have a sequel. So, like, Tiger Queen, standalone. It's actually way easier to just write standalones. I know everyone loves series, but I kind of like one and done a lot. It just, I like to enter a world, give you a story, and then pull back. I mean, I have some ideas for some other series, but it's all about finding the time. So.
Gotcha. So you had the idea, possibility, but then after the book came out and everyone said, "My God, this is the book we've all been waiting for," and the world stopped and everyone was reading. You remember, esteemed audience, you were there. So that happened, and then it's, "Oh my God, we have to get a sequel right away." Or at what point do you go from there could be a sequel to I'm definitely writing the sequel?
I had kind of a different timeline than most authors had. So I actually had Tiger Queen already written by that point, because they tell you, I don't know why I know why they tell you this, but they always say, like, if you sell your first book in a series, don't write the second one until the first one sells, because you go through so many edits and things that it almost makes the second one, like, almost not even worth having written, if that makes sense. And so, like, it's a lot of wasted time. So they tell you not to write the second one until the first one sells. Well, in the meantime, I had written Tiger Queen, right? And so Tiger Queen was, like, ready to go. And they're like, do we wait, like, 8 months and let Annie write this next book and get that edited and everything? Or do we just get Tiger Queen out now? So we got Tiger Queen out. And then that gave me time to write the sequel. So actually what they did is, so I had a 1-book deal for A Touch of Gold. And then they did a 2-book deal for Tiger Queen and A Curse of Gold. So that was kind of like lumped together. It's like, hey, we want both. And I was like, sweet, awesome.
Oh, worked out nicely. Okay, so then you've got a book to promote and time to write the sequel.
Yes, and while I will say A Curse of Gold does tie up Princess Cora's story, there are some loose ends, I will say.
I would think, if nothing else, spin-off novels could be an offering.
I love spin-off novels. I think those are fun. Like, I mean, because this, especially as you will see in A Curse of Gold, this becomes a very rich world with a lot of new characters, a lot of kind of new insights in how this world works and the people in it, and the variety of people in it. So I think that opens a lot of doors as well that I would love to explore, even if it's just in, like, a little mini story or, like, a little giveaway incentive or something like that.
So how do you keep track of your world from one novel to the sequel, especially since you had another one in between? And I'm assuming that there were at least some revisions going on with Touch of Gold from your original story to the final version that was even more superior. But I know, me personally, I get a couple of different versions going in my head, and I got to remember which one esteemed audience actually got. I have to keep all those details straight.
Sometimes it can be hard, and, like, I never reread my books, but when I was working on the sequel, I would go back and spot check a few things just to make sure they're wearing the same color of this or the same thing as that, or they wear this the same way, or the hair is, mentioned as the same color, all those kind of things. Those were the only things I would go back and spot check in the novel. But I keep a lot of it up here. Like I told you, this is why I'm fine being a hermit, because, like, I got like 40 different worlds stored in here at any given time in my mind, for those of you who can't see where I'm pointing. And so, yeah, I keep a lot of it all up here. This is a very busy place to be in my mind. I'm not good at writing things down.
Fair enough.
I know. See, and it's so funny. I went on tour with Lauren Mancy, who wrote The Memory Thief, and she is a complete plotter to, like, a T. Like, she has, like, color-coded Post-it notes of what happens in her novel, and I'm sitting here, like, the kids are like, okay, so she has Post-it notes and outlines everything. They're like, Miss Sullivan, because they all call me Miss Sullivan. And like, Miss Sullivan, how do you write a novel? And all the little kids ask me, and I'm like, I just write it, and, like, whatever comes to me, I just write. And they're like, okay. I'm like, yeah.
So does that make your revision process take longer, or are you pretty good about revising as you go?
I pretty much revise as I go. Like, I can't move forward in my novel unless what comes before it is like perfect. Meaning that, like, I won't leave characters unnamed. I won't, like, if I realize something in chapter 6 that affects what happens in chapter 4, like I realize, oh, the character is actually this way instead of like this, I will just go back and start again and write to that point. And then I might get to like chapter 8 and realize in chapter 8 that something someone says is like, oh, that's a really cool thing. I need to foreshadow that earlier or put that in earlier. And then I'll go back to chapter 4 and then I'll write it again and reread through it all the way to chapter 8 to make sure that that little thread is now perfectly woven through and not just like plunked in there. Like, I write a very clean first draft. Like, my first draft is pretty much like almost ready to go to my agent. I usually have like my sister and one beta reader read it first.
Sounds efficient.
That is a good word for me. I strive to be efficient on all fronts. And so, like, I like to tell people my writing style is like Happy Gilmore, you know, the Adam Sandler movie. He's the golfer.
Of course.
And he hates putting, but he's really good at hitting the ball really, really far the first time. That's me. I'm really good at hitting the ball really, really far and getting really close to a hole-in-one. But then when I have to putt, I hate it. So going back to the Lauren Mancy example, because we shared the same editor, Lauren Mancy and I, and she would get her edit letters and cry tears of joy because she's like, I get to revise. It's my favorite part. And I'd be over here being like, I get my edit letters and I just cry. And they're not tears of joy, guys. So that just shows you I hate the putting, the like, let's tap it in there, let's make it a little better. And I'm like, no, I'm just like hole-in-one and done. We're good. I mean, obviously,
perfect. I'm not doing it.
right. I'm like, it's good enough, and they're like, no, it's not. And I'm like, all right, fine. I definitely do revise, guys. I highly recommend listening to your editor. But I don't know. That's just how I write. I can't like, if you made me like color code my novel, I don't even know what I would do. I would just give up. I'd be like, that just sounds horrible. Like,
I don't want to be a writer anymore.
I know. I'm like sitting here thinking about it. I'm like, there's just like no joy in that. See, I think I was discussing with someone the other day, and if I plot my novel ahead of time, it's no fun for me because I know what happens. But if I write it as I go along, then it's just as fun for me as it is for the reader. And if I'm having fun, you're having fun, right? And if it's new to me, it's like, oh, that's cool. I didn't see that coming because I didn't know it was coming. Like, so.
Fair enough.
So yeah, that's how I roll, guys. Take it or leave it. May not work for everybody, but it works for me.
Should we name check your editor since she's done such hard work and making sure that the books are from close to perfect hole-in-one to all the way perfect hole-in-one?
I've had a few over the years, but the most recent one was Hannah Van Hells. I can't even say her last name right. And Jackie Alberta, she helped a lot too at Blank, so definitely thankful for them. And for my agent, Krista Heschke at McIntosh and Otis. She's always a good champion of mine and who reads things. And my sister, who finds all my stupid mistakes.
Well, one of those names that the esteemed audience needs to worry about is Miss Heschke, who was a previous guest on the show. Go find that episode; it's incredible.
Yes, I love her. So check her out if you're querying. Definitely, like, you can drop my name, be like, "Oh, I heard Annie Sullivan on Middle Grade Ninja, and she said you were a great agent." About that.
Yeah. Say Annie Sullivan said this, and then I heard your interview, and basically what I'm getting at is Middle Grade Ninja is amazing. Anyway, here's my pitch.
I always look forward to coming on here because I know we're gonna have fun.
Well, I saw you said something that I wanted to ask you about. You said this. I think, I don't know if it was Twitter or Facebook, one of the two. I'm actually on a forced social media diet right now. So I went back on and risked getting re-addicted just to prepare for this interview. I've taken Facebook and Twitter completely off my phone, and I have dedicated times during the day where I open them up. Otherwise, I'm closing them. I'm done. I don't need to wake up every morning and read the anxiety of the whole world, and that's how I start my day. It's terrible. But I went into that awful world to stalk you a little bit and see what you've been up to. So they have interesting things to ask you about. And I saw that you are on chapter, or you were, as of this post, you're on chapter 7 of a new project. And you said, I have this thing where if I can get past chapter 8, I can usually finish writing the story because it means I've got enough of the world built and it's functioning as it should. How does that work?
Yes. I mean, you pretty much said that's how it works for me. So when I'm writing, again, because I'm a pantser, so I don't plot this out. I don't know the rules of the world or anything. I don't even know my characters until they appear on the page and start talking to each other. And that's how I discover who they are. And so the beginning definitely takes me a lot longer to write because I'm learning the world, I'm learning the characters, the rules, how these people interact, how they feel, what their motivation is, and who's standing in their way of that motivation. And so if I can get to chapter 8, I can usually go all the way. I've had a lot of stories that I've abandoned at chapter 3, 4, 5, 6. But if I can get to that chapter 8, it usually means that enough of that world is working together. Because again, like I said, I go back and reread to get to like forward. It means that like everything is still working. Whereas if I get there and I'm just like, this is not working, I usually don't know how to fix it. And it's at a point where something is just irrevocably wrong. It could be the character is not right, setting, the world, something is not right, and I can't fix it. Which sounds like terrible. You should be able to fix it, but sometimes it's just something is wrong. And sometimes I might go back to those stories and rework them and save them in a way. But yeah, if I can get to chapter 8, it's like, okay, we've got a pretty solid world. We've spent 20,000 words, 1/4 of the book. Because that's where I am right now. I'm at 21,000 something words, and I'm on chapter 7. Still on chapter 7, guys. It's fine. Gonna get to chapter 8. Gonna get there. But yeah, if I can get to that, then it's like, okay, we've got a solid world. We've got solid characters that we've met. And if we haven't found our motivation and our villain and everything by this point, then we're not gonna find them. So all that to say, for me, chapter 8 is a very important turning point. And it's a self-imposed turning point, but it's kind of a mental thing as well. It's like, okay, like, look, I already got to chapter 8, like, it's fine. So.
Is there something of if I were to stop now, I'd be throwing away a full 8 chapters and 20,000 words. That's way too much time to be sunk.
I've definitely done that. I've done a few where it's like I got to like chapter 6, chapter 7. I've done a few where I got to chapter 7, started all over, wrote it again, got to like chapter 7, wasn't right, started all over again, and rewrote it. And I did actually finish that book eventually, but it needs some revisions, which, again, not my strong suit. So this shiny new project was like, write me, because this other one was like, revise me. And I was like, I'm going to go over here and write this one. So, yeah, that one's going to sit for a little while. My agent's probably like, what happened to that one? I'm like, what? Which one? I can't hear you. There's a bad connection somewhere.